Welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-League and more. Today on the show, Diamante doesn't do shit, Reddy bottles it, and Popper rage quits. Plenty more as we talk A-League finals. I'm Colby. I'm joined today by Tommie and Jesse. How are we, boys?
I'm well, mate. I'm very well.
Just nestling in on this blustery, cold evening in Melbourne, and just enjoying the finer things.
Yeah, that's right. I'm enjoying some of that here as well, boys. So you got to settle in on windy Melbourne evenings like this.
Exactly right.
But plenty coming up on the show today. We're of course doing another YouTube live, as you might have seen, listeners on social media. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel if that takes your fancy. Tommie, how do people find that, by the way? Are we easy to find on YouTube?
Yeah, so if they search for MTAG podcast, we're on there. If you search for any of the names of our episodes from the podcast, you'll be able to find us there. But yeah, MTAG podcast is the best way to find us.
Great. And we'll, of course, be uploading this to our podcast feed as well. So if you're listening on the pod, that's why the audio might sound like it's a Skype call or something like that, because it is. Let's get into a bit of chat, boys. But before we do, Tommie, I believe you've got a correction from last week.
Yeah, look, I've got to put my hand up here and look, here at More Than a Game, we're all about integrity. And look, I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say, when I get something wrong, I'll let you know. So I was very surprised to see at the semis that were played last night that there were fans there. I didn't think there'd be fans there. So there you go.
Is that because it was Melbourne City, or?
Well, yeah, given the first game was involving two Victorian teams, I didn't think there'd be anyone there to watch it, even if there were fans allowed to be there. But alas, not the case.
A surprising amount of Woo fans there, I thought.
Agreed. Maybe just all the Western City Wanderers fans who were getting around. Just another
Anything
team with Western in the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Parramatta?
And the other item, boys, the PFA put out their team of the season because obviously we've passed the end of the regular season. We're well into the A-League finals now. Did you see this one, boys?
Saw an image of it. I saw a very tasty front three from what I saw.
Yeah, Bez Macker and Adam LaFondra. Pretty hard to argue with that front three. Any in there that sort of you might want to replace it all, boys? I know there was a few shouts about Jakobsen being sort of replaced in the back line. Tommie, have you got any views on him being in the team?
Yeah, well, to be honest, like having seen Jakobsen sort of every second week when he was at City, I know that he's a quality player, so I was a little bit surprised, I guess, having not seen a lot of Adelaide this year, that he was rated that highly. But he's a quality player on his day and doesn't have many bad days. If anything, it was more just, that's right, I've forgotten about him more than it felt like he didn't deserve it. Probably the other one for me was probably Jamie Young, though. Not necessarily sure that he deserved his spot in there.
There'll be plenty of goalkeeper chat on this pod today, listeners. So we will be diving into keepers good and bad and performances good and bad as well. So why don't we dive into that? So up next, A-League semi-finals review. So the finals doubleheader, the semi-finals doubleheader kicked off last night, Wednesday night, with Melbourne City taking on Western United. It was Melbourne City who got up 2-0 in the end, thanks to two half goals. Macca with a penalty, and I'm calling it Windbickler. A lot of people calling it Windbickler, but it went down as a Tamaki Amai own goal.
Harsh.
He didn't want to claim it after the game either. But the most surprising thing I think about this game is it was just a very solid performance from City. City just they never looked like really losing this one. I mean, the Woo came at them at various points, but Tommie, what did you make of it?
Look, I would agree with that for the most part. There was a 15-minute period in the second half where the Woo were really looked like they had
Pushing.
City on the ropes. Yeah. And they had them under a whole bunch of sustained pressure, and City couldn't really get out of their own half for what felt like about 15 minutes then. And you thought, oh yeah, the Woo were going to score sort of any moment here. But a goal for the Woo just never arrived. And when City did score through that penalty, it was completely against the run of play. And I thought that really hurt the Woo, and they never really looked like they were in the game again after that, even though they were only down 1-0. And you sort of thought, oh well, it's only one more goal, like just get pushing. But they, like, I mean, a lot of the players, I thought they tired really quickly. I mean, Risdon looked out on his feet at about the 75th minute, and it was really tough for them to get back into it. But I think mentally, it was just, how do you get back into it after that sort of 15 to 20 minute period where really appeared like they should have been scoring, or they should have scored?
Yeah,
I agree.
Been like that. Yeah, go on, Jesse.
I agree with what Tommy's saying there, because I think for me, I was watching the first half on and off, but I really started to tune in on I think it was about the 50-minute mark, or just after half time. And from that point, for at least the next 15 minutes, it just looked like that City was on the rack. Like it just seemed like wave after wave of Woo attack, and there was that chance for Lustica that went over the bar. That seemed like a really critical moment in the game, and you sort of got the feeling that they had to score there because they were probably going to run out of legs in the last 20, which that's what it seemed to eventuate.
It's been a really similar flavour, I've thought. A lot of these games, including the elimination finals as well, like one team goes up, the other team attacks, but it just doesn't really look like their day, notwithstanding they're throwing everything at it. All of these finals, I felt, had that sort of similar vibe.
Yep, Phoenix 101.
The Roar as well. Perth did the same thing. They were throwing everything at it and just couldn't get any joy. But just on the first goal, boys, what did we think of the pen, Tommy?
Nah, I thought it was a cast iron pen. Like I said, I thought the Woo would have been really disappointed about it. But yeah, cast iron pen for me.
There's something Tommy C. futsal about that McLaren fall to the ground. Would you say, Tommy? Someone's given your Achilles heel a wee tap, and you've just gone down like a pack of spuds.
And the yell too. Tommy always does the yelp. And indoors where you've got the reverberation, it's like, yeah.
The glass sort of almost like it wants to go.
I just remember a very similar thing happening to Damo, and he went down like a pack of spuds. And I just remember Tommy looking at him really curiously, like, wait a second, is someone else doing that? That's my role.
That's like the Spider-Man meme, like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it was a bit harsh, but in saying that, like, so the letter of the law, he's clipped him. He's got the right to go down, I guess. It just was one of those things where it was pretty theatrical, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
I guess it's something where it might have been unsatisfying, I think, for the neutral, where because it is a foul, and anywhere else on the field, no one really bats an eyelid at that. But because it's such a clear foul, albeit a soft one, it doesn't sort of match the penalty doesn't match the crime, I guess.
Correct.
And there was another loud voice that we're normally used to associating with Woo games. Diamante, did he play in this one, boys?
Yeah, who was it? Was it Delbridge? I think was the right back, because it felt like he was just in. He just had Diamante in his pocket for most of the game. Like, definitely wasn't one of Diamante's best games, and you would expect, I guess, a really experienced captain and player like Diamante to step up in a game like this. And I mean, in between those two City goals, I thought Diamante's head was completely gone, and he looked really rattled, which has been really unlike him this season.
It's easy to criticize.
Yeah,
it's easy to criticize him. I think you got to probably put more emphasis on the City defense, because there was that period, as I said, where he looked quite busy, and the Woo looked like they were going to score, and say they did score there, and he's put a decent cross in. It's 1-1. He's having a good game. But the fact that they did ride out that period and then went on and scored to close out the game sort of makes him look like he had a really poor display. I think he was just a bit quieter than usual, and I think we should probably just focus more on City's good defending rather than him being rubbish, because I don't think he was rubbish. I just think he had a quieter game.
As a Raw fan, it was pretty satisfying to see Diamante losing his head though. When just a couple of days earlier, Western United shut the Raw out of the game, and Diamante was just like running around, playing it up to everyone. He was everyone's friend that night. Oh, don't be angry, don't be angry, and and he was just straight on the other side of that equation, getting frustrated and then losing his head. So it was a nice bit of Schadenfreude to see.
All of that really culminated, Colby, in those awesome scenes where I think it was Delbridge on the ground who started to cramp up late in the game, and Diamante gave him the most aggressive leg stretch I've ever seen.
That was like it was so ironic, wasn't it? Like it was forward Italian tactics to go down and get the leg stretched out. Like it was like this is like what your country is known for.
It's one of those things that you love to see it if you're a neutral or it's your team doing it, but it's infuriating if it's happening to your team.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, the theatrics. I think you're right, Jesse. Like. It's everything. It's like the aggressive leg stretch of the opposition. It's like, if they're walking slowly to pick up a ball on a throw in, you're like placing it down for them and like giving it to them and stuff to hurry things up.
Shithousery.
It's part of the game. It's part of the game that we love and we love to hate. Some more performances from this game, boys. I've got down here to mention Glover. What did you make of his performance?
I thought he was really good, and it's funny because Glover's had like a pretty good season, but he hasn't been without sort of fault this season though. Like I think it was that I'm pretty sure it was in one of the Melbourne derbies this year, very early on, which feels like an eternity ago, where Glover, there was that free kick from outside of the box, which looked pretty pedestrian, and it's gone straight through his hands. He's shown that he can be a fantastic goalkeeper, but I guess I think City fans would be concerned about whether or not how Glover will go in those big, I guess, high pressure moments in a big final such as this, because I guess he didn't really. To be honest, I don't remember his performance in the FFA Cup final this year, but I'm going to assume it wasn't very good considering he let in 4 goals.
Good save against Lustica. That was the key save, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like that's what your goalkeeper's there to do, not save it, but like to be there in those big moments in those big games. That's where they really earn their money, because a lot of these goalkeepers, if they've got a good back 4 or back 3 or back 5 or whatever in front of them, sometimes if they're in a good team, they don't have a lot to do, but it's just those moments and those saves that are just absolutely critical.
It's been fun to watch him develop this year because, I mean, he's got all the physical attributes, I think, to be a really top-level goalkeeper. And, I mean, it wasn't for no reason that he was on the books at Spurs for a little while as a like an academy prospect. So I think Glover might have one more season in the A-League, but I wouldn't be surprised if he heads back to Europe, not necessarily at the very highest level, but back to Europe, I think, in the next 2 years.
And that's what we want to see too, isn't it? Like, like best of luck to Lawrence Thomas, but, glad that he's finally got his move overseas. But, it seems like it's 3, 4, 5 seasons too late from when he was really sort of showing that great potential when he burst onto the scene. So, yeah, I hope we see one more really solid season building for Glover, and then, go and get a move and do really well with it. Anyone else stand out for you in this one?
There were a couple for me. I thought Nathaniel Atkinson and Craig Noon down that left-hand side, I thought they both combined really well, but individually both had really good games as well. Like Atkinson, he's normally a right back, and so he's filling in for the captain, Scott Jamieson, who's back in Melbourne with his young family. But Atkinson, I thought, was really good. He sometimes sort of thrusts into midfield, and he's kind of doing like that inverted fullback type thing that Montbert likes one of the fullbacks to do, and that's not something that probably a lot of 21-year-old fullbacks have been asked to do. So I thought he adapted to that really well. I think it's only the second game that he's played at left fullback, so pretty challenging for him. But I thought he stood up really well. And there was one moment right at the death where I think it was Dylan Perius. Can't remember how you say it, but he was bombing down the right, and he's obviously supremely quick. And he tried to sort of cut back, and Atkinson just dispossessed him like like he was nothing, and then just sort of strode forward and played a really sensible ball. And it showed that, yeah, he's good going forward, but he needs to be able to do it at both ends, and he was capable at both ends last night, I thought.
They look good on the break. Look good on the break, City, which is like a couple of the attacking players, McLaren and Luna, and they look good when they had space, which they didn't for the first half of the second half. But once the Woo started to tire, those players started to look pretty dangerous. So encouraging if they get to sort of the 60-minute mark against Sydney, it'd be interesting to see if those players start to be prominent again.
This is a team that's really built around counter-attacking, like with their mobility and pace, and I think it's going to be a really good grand final, I think.
Yes, we will get on to that later in the pod. But first, boys, the second semi-final of this doubleheader, Sydney and Perth. Sydney quite convincing in the end, 2-0 winners, with early or first half goals in quick succession to Ninkovic and Adam Lafondra through two Perth glory errors. But before we get on to Perth, what about Sydney, boys? Let's just have a quick chat about them. I thought they were supposed to be dipping.
Yeah, well, not sure if they really just needed to come up against maybe a bad team or a team out of form as well. Perth have been pretty horrid since the restart, and I thought they were. It sort of seemed almost out of character that they were able to get up last week. They kind of shithoused their way to the semis, but I thought, they seemed really sort of back to sort of their restart form last night, and I thought Sydney did it pretty comfortably, which really surprised me how comfortable Sydney were actually.
It's one of the frustrating things about tournament football. Like that's the way I look at it when you get into the finals. It's just the fact that sometimes teams that play in the quarters and advance past the quarters might not necessarily be good enough to get past the semi, but they get there on merit. Like Perth deserved to be there because they played that game against the Phoenix better. So I can't take that away from them. But I think the thing that I was hoping all along with the Phoenix, for example, and these other teams in the competition is, say, an Adelaide or a Phoenix, I just felt like if they could get to a semi-final, I felt like they're the kind of team that would really test Sydney a bit more. And it was a shame to sort of see Perth make a couple of pretty schoolboy errors and just Sydney just sort of cruise, because once you go to 2-0 up, I mean, they just have to see it through. So it was a bit of a shame for me, because it's just, I feel like there are other teams there that may have given them a better run. But in saying that, on overall balance, they probably deserve to be in the grand final based on their season, and I can't really criticize them for that. But it just was some poor errors from Perth. I'll be pretty pissed off about that.
And Tommy, does that go to experience? Sydney just capitalizing on some errors and having the wherewithal to see it through. Is it?
I don't know. For me, it kind of felt more like Perth kind of played their final last week or midweek. Last weekend, whenever the game was. It felt like with this one, like they just looked sort of uninspired, and it was just really challenging. I thought, like, yeah, sort of Sydney choked them out of the game, but at the same time, like Perth obviously really showed how much they're missing Castro, and in a game like this where they're trying to sort of break down a team in the final 30 minutes of a game that's just sort of sitting in.
So we've got a listener question from Zenith Clark, or a comment rather. But should Adelaide and Jets have played off a Perth spot? I think what this is going to, boys, is that were Perth good enough value in the finals?
No, no, they weren't good value. I think Perth without Castro are a completely different team, and I tell you what, I thought it would have been a pretty decent shout for Adelaide or the Jets to jump in their place, because I think either of those teams would have been a far better challenge for Sydney come finals.
Perth without Castro, they're driving old cars. The internet's very sparing. They're using old cell phones. It's tough.
In Perth, everyone's got to go into Northbridge, and they're just hanging around in the squares there.
All right, boys, let's get on to Perth. Liam Reddy, we've got to talk about his performance. Jesse, what did you make of that goalkeeping error? Talk us through it.
Well, it's straight out of the school of Karius, really, isn't it? Just the thing I get about these kind of goals when you concede them is goalkeepers will make mistakes. It's going to happen. And when they play with the ball at their feet, it's also going to happen. So you can't always throw the kitchen sink at them with criticism. But in that, I just had to watch that goal back a few times, because when that play starts and Le Fondre initially starts pressing, there is so much time. Like, this is not kind of like Sydney have like slowly boxed Perth into a corner and now they're playing like 5-meter passes to the goalkeeper. It wasn't like that at all. Like, it was one pass all the time in the world. He had plenty of time to just clear it if he wanted to, and just the most inexplicable decision to put himself on the wrong side. His body was on the wrong side of Le Fondre as well. So even if you're playing in midfielder, I mean, this is you 101, Tommie. You'd never let your body get on the wrong side of the person going for the ball, because you're always going to lose that challenge. And it just was just a complete and utter fuck up from start to finish, and should never have happened. Should never have happened.
I think there's a couple of things that do deserve I think a shout out from Sydney's perspective. The first one is that when who was it? It was Le Fondre. When Le Fondre decides to press, he doesn't get left alone to just run around like a headless chook by himself. Barbarouses joins him, and they block off one of the passing lanes, which they did really well, which puts Reddy into two minds about what he's doing. And then the second credit obviously needs to go to Le Fondre for chasing down Reddy and putting in what was actually could have been a pretty nasty challenge had it maybe gone a little bit differently. But you got plenty of ball, and obviously the rest is history. But yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due to Le Fondre and Barbarouses, I thought, as well.
And boys, not a lot you can do about, like, I mean, these are coach killers, aren't they? Some of these errors, but I mean, Popper, what's going on? So many finals, so many grand finals, and not a lot to show for it. Is he cursed?
He just doesn't want it.
He's got to want it.
Needs to want it more.
What we are hearing or reading is that he's going to go to a Greek league club, and apparently 24 hours has passed since the final, and he's already sort of, the reports are that he's already sort of signed this deal and basically rage quit the glory. What are your thoughts on that, Jesse?
Well, I would have thought that he'd go for a better league. The Cypriot league's obviously quite close. If he wants to sort of test himself a little bit more, I would have gone there personally. But
it's a higher standard there. Much better.
You want to test yourself at the highest standard.
Maybe we should do a Twitter Applewell on that. No.
Jeez. Wow.
Christ.
Wow. Yeah, we could be heroes just for one day. But I think trying
to work AEK in, but
I know there's just so many options there. No, I think sometimes, I mean, you guys will have your own comments on Ange and some of these coaches that have gone overseas, but sometimes it feels like, for them at least, maybe not so much for the person who watches them, but for them internally, they might feel like the time is right to go try something else. And I mean, it can sometimes be a little bit peculiar when a coach has been around a long time, and particularly when you've seen them as a fan in the same league for a number of years. But maybe he just feels like it's time for him to sort of, he may still come back, but it just might be for now. He feels like he needs to go and do something else. So that seems like the obvious thing for me.
Didn't he do this at the Wanderers when he lost some big final? He ran away overseas to Turkey.
Sabbatical.
He went to Turkey, and didn't it all kind of fall apart? The same as what happened with Mustafa Amini.
Mm.
And you suspect there's going to be a broken heart here at some point, though, in the next 2 weeks again, don't you?
And what's going to happen to the kids? Who's going to get the kids in the divorce?
God, jeez.
Think of the children.
Do you reckon this has got a mutual termination written all over it for the two Popper boys?
Yeah, I mean, I see them on, sunning themselves on a Greek beach in a couple of weeks after isolation. So
now Colby, just leave your fantasies at the door, mate. What would be interesting though is if he only takes one of the Popovich boys. Like imagine if he says, "Nah, sorry, Gabrielle, like you're not good enough. I'm taking Christian. Sorry."
Well, at risk of ripping the family apart, maybe we should move on.
Well, just before we move on from Popper though, Tommie, you mentioned that they basically played their final the week before. Is this an indictment on the Popper Skinfolds season? Like, has he front ended too much work? Have Perth just run out of gas, and are they just fucked at this point? What's going on?
Yeah, maybe they worked too hard during the first 3 months of lockdown and ISO. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Like we know sort of Popper's teams, they do come home strong with a wet sail, but I mean maybe their wet sail was flying sort of halfway through ISO, and then by the time they got back to Project Restart, it was all over. The sail was just soaking wet, and they just had nothing left.
And boys, wow. We also saw Robbie Slater and Graham Arnold in the box in this game. Two really great mates. Did you see this?
You said the Spider-Man meme before, Tommie. I'm pretty sure that one applied, eh? Both just standing there.
Love is love, boys. Love is love.
Couple of two ones raises over the top. Couple of peas in a pod.
Yeah, I could just imagine what the atmosphere must have been like in that box, and conversation flowing freely. Just talking about how much they love Sydney. But anyway, grand final preview, boys. The A-League grand final will be this Sunday, the 30th of August, 6:30 p.m. kickoff at Bankwest. It's going to be Sydney and Melbourne City, obviously. It's 1 versus 2 on the ladder. We've heard some of the players and some less savoury types, let's say, on soccer Twitter, referring to it as the big dance. But we've got a question from Nigel Riley on Twitter saying, should we call it the big dance or the massive cha-cha, or what should we be referring to the grand final as?
Well, I remember the first week that this pod kind of aired, Tommie got himself stuck on the big kahuna. I'm pretty sure he said the big kahuna about 5 times in the first pod, and I thought, wow.
I got myself into.
We're 1 week into this pod. It's all looking so promising, and we've peaked. We've already said the big kahuna 5 times in one pod. But I mean, it's equally applicable. I mean, the big kahuna, the big dance. I guess you just have to back yourself.
Boys, we got the big blue between Victory and Sydney. Is this the little blue? I feel like that's been said before, but I can't remember where.
No, I don't know. But a few points to go over here, boys. Obviously, City have been coveting this title for a while. Obviously, they've just got the FFA Cup to their name in there since inception in the A-League. Is this going to be it for them, Tommie, or are they going to choke again?
Oh, geez. Look, I've got to say, when it was the FFA Cup final way back when in, I think it was October or November, I thought that City were gonna piss that in, but we can see what happened there, and so I guess that whole sort of City choking thing, it's still around, and you almost wonder if it's going to be getting into the players' heads at this point as well. Which once that kind of thing starts happening, then it takes on a mind of its own, really.
Well, I've got a hot take here, guys. My hot takes from the week before were utter shit, so hopefully I can improve on that. But my hot take for this one is that Sydney actually choke, and City win based on maybe an error or two from Sydney and get the job done. So City don't choke because Sydney choke first. It's like a choke off.
Jesus. Sounds like a wild Friday night at your house, Jesse.
Well, we can now call it the Dominatrix Derby.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Look, one thing that also might be playing in the minds of some of the players, especially the City players, is the rumours that Monberts is going to be jetting off. 5 minutes after the grand final to head up the potential new City franchise. I think it's Troy's FC. I'm sure that's definitely correct pronunciation, but in
it's French would be Troy, isn't it?
Troy FC. But
just Troy and all his mates.
Jesse, if your manager's you got 1 foot out the door in the grand final, surely that's got to affect you.
Yeah, it would, but I think going back to what Tommie was just saying about that hunt for silverware, I think that'll be all the focus right now. I think that the last thing on their minds will be so much where the manager's going. I think all their attention will be on winning this, and I think also the fact that Sydney have been the team to beat all season makes kind of City feel like there's probably a point to prove here. So I suppose you could say, well, based on the table alone, the two best teams are in the final, and I do think that it would be, maybe I'm going with my heart a little bit here, but I do kind of want to see Sydney just blow it because they have clearly been the best team. They've clearly been the best team in this league all year. But I don't think they've looked convincing since they've come back. And to be honest, Perth were the best team for them to play in that semi-final, the perfect time. And I guess the other thing I was going to say about that semi-final leading into the final is that Sydney didn't really create that much. This is the thing. Like we kind of gloss over that. We're kind of like, really fucked up and all this kind of stuff. But Sydney, I guess they didn't have to because they went 2-0 up, but they didn't really create that much. And it's going to be interesting to see, like, if they make a couple of errors and say City go up 2-0, it'd be really interesting to see how Sydney respond.
And Tommie, will City's mindset depend on their shirt color, and should we care about this?
Look, there is a really big push on social media at the moment for City to wear red and white because Sydney, having finished higher, they're technically the home team. So, really strong push. But and the club has been very cagey about whether or not they're going to wear red and white or whether or not they're going to wear grey. So, it's going to be interesting times, and I think there's going to be plenty of people on social media with an eye out to see if there's any hints or anything like that over the coming days about what colour shirt they're going to be wearing.
Wouldn't it be strange just to listen to the fans? Wouldn't that be an outrageous thing to do for a football club? Just what do the fans want?
In the 10th anniversary of Heart being formed as well.
It's a great opportunity.
Surely the kit manufacturers, boys, they've got contractual commitments, don't they?
Well, yeah. I guess the fear is that they leave they left the red kit back in Melbourne because they never thought they were going to need it.
Oh, not this again. And Macca, boys, I think it's his first final, isn't it? He's been sort of chasing this one pretty hard as well. If I recall correctly, I don't think he didn't win a final with Brisbane. He certainly didn't win one with Perth.
No, I guess he did play the FFA Cup final earlier on in the season, but he was like, it was one of those games where his reputation for going missing in big games comes from, and I think he'll be really pumped up to put in a good performance, if not to score, so that he can sort of put some of those naysayers to bed a little bit.
Well, the FFA Cup's really little kahuna stuff, isn't it, Tommie?
Medium-sized kahuna.
Let's a few stats for you boys. Tommie's helpfully given us a few here. This will be Melbourne City's third major final, and they only won that 2016 FFA Cup final, where they also beat Sydney, as you said. You and I were there, Tommie. That was a good.
We were. It was a good night. It was a good night.
Good moment. But if Sydney win, they'll go clear of the Australian football all-time record most grand final wins, currently held by South Melbourne, Marconi, Sydney, and Melbourne Victory with 4 wins each. So
And that's something that so Simon Hill earlier on the week was saying that's been a bit of an opportunity missed in terms of like the marketing for this, that like this is potentially Australian football history could be made where like a new record for most grand final wins, where you can have a sort of a clear leader. So I mean,
Tommy, you spend 80% of your money on the marketing on the opening video for the A-League. You haven't got much room to move after that, have you?
this is true.
I'm sure South Melbourne and Marconi fans would love to have that knife just twisted a little bit more. That's just one more thing that you don't have. I mean, either way,
and it's also another thing that Victory won't have anymore as well.
That's exactly right. That was my next point, Tommy. Either way, the Bucks
mate.
piled on, and it was an underrated tweet. I didn't see this. I don't know if Damo tweeted this, but he put it up on our Facebook page. It was some other post about the Vuck earlier on where he's called them the cuck. and I still don't know. I haven't asked him. I still don't know whether that was a typo or whether he intentionally whether we're calling them the cuck now, but. I just thought it was brilliant, and he never explained it to anybody. But they'll get piled on either way, because obviously either Sydney's winning it and going past the Victory, or Melbourne City have got something something extra to hold over the Victory. So, and Lee Broxham Facts, of course, asks what else could happen to make Melbourne Victory supporters even more depressed at this point. Well, I think those two things are certainly one of them. Either of those two things happening.
Let's face it, that joke's never going to get cuckold.
I tell you what, the innuendo in the cuck getting piled on, I think, is the best part of that hasn't been said so far, though.
Oh, jeez,
the big cuck pile on,
the big cuckuna.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay, boys. Let's get into some predictions now. Jesse, we sort of heard yours before, but you're calling it a City win and a Sydney choke.
A City win, Sydney choke, and I think it's going to happen in normal time. 2-1 City.
Wow, Tommy, how about you?
I don't know. I'm so torn about this one. I think. Like head says Sydney, and the heart says Melbourne City. I'm saying City in regular time 2-0.
I agree, Tommy.
Wow.
I think Sydney in regular time 2-0. City are going to scare them in flashes, but I think Sydney will do a professional job and see it out. As much as I hate to see it, I would like my heart says City as well. I would love to see City win and Sydney choke in some way. That would just be glorious. But I think Sydney are going to do a professional job and see it out. Shah Space Nen on Facebook thinks that City are going to win, and the sign of a good team is if they can win while playing poorly, and they've done that against one of the league's best teams last night. I think he's referring to Perth Glory. So more City predictions. So I guess we're sort of starting to split up a little bit. And before, go on, Jesse.
I just think there's another twist. That's what I reckon. I think there's another twist to this, and that's why I'm picking City. But hey, we'll find out on Sunday night.
We certainly will. Just before we go, Tommy, do you want to give a shout out to Soccer Aid tomorrow?
Yeah, I will. So, look, I'm going to be joining in with Soccer Aid tomorrow. Soccer Aid is the brainchild of Round Ball Project, and we're going to be joined by Distraction in the Box, the Ladies League, the Soccer Podcast, and Striptease. Now, probably more, definitely bigger names than any of those, though. Daniel Garb and Simon Hill, they're going to be joining in as well. They're going to be reuniting and having a chat as well. But look, it does have a good cause, though. We're going to be raising some money for the Dylan Tombides Foundation, John Moriarty Football, and the Reagan Milstein Foundation. There's a GoFundMe associated with this, so please give if you can. But most importantly, don't forget to tune in tomorrow evening on Friday, 28th of August, to check it out.
You guys got Ben Homer on the pod, or
who?
Couldn't book him, or?
Yeah, he's flat out, mate.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, that's it. That's it for this episode. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and you can get that into your feed and follow us on all of our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're out there. We're on Reddit now, boys, as well. So, listeners,
Just need a TikTok that we can ignore.
Get around to say, well, TikTok, we haven't figured that out yet. But next week, we'll be reviewing the A-League season and we'll be previewing the Premier League season. Until then, enjoy the football.